Hey there, this is Bryce Tomlinson from the BroBryceGardens channel here, and today I wanted to take a little break from, destroying my deck and get out in the windy outdoors as it's turning into fall and talk a little bit about this worm farm that I bought. And this is a worm bin that I bought from Northwest Red Worms. Doug Nipple over there in Camas, Washington, and I had a lot of fun with it early in the summer, but I had some problems with it, and I'm going to give it another shot in the spring probably. But until then, I just kind of wanted to talk briefly about some of the mistakes that I made and what I plan to do next spring. So one of the things that I found out really early on is that the instructions are kind of not very clear, not very well written, and I think the instructions also kind of assume that you have some kind of prior experience doing this kind of stuff. So I really didn't know what half the instructions were talking about sometimes. So I just thought I'd cover some of the basics. They give you this liner stuff that comes with it, and they tell you to put it in there, and it sort of discourages the worms from going down any further from the bottom bin. So this will be in the bottom bin. But they also give you this what's called a coir, and they give you actually a wad of it. I actually bought this from the gardening department of my local store. It's the kind of stuff that you would line like a flower basket with, and you can basically cut these round mats up, and then what I liked to do, what I did eventually, is you just you get them wet, get them expanded, and you kind of line it up inside there. I'll show you. And this way the worms are really discouraged from going any further down. So what I do is I put another empty bin on top of it, and then I put the coir on top of there. And the reason why is so that it just kind of adds another level that the worms have to go to, because they tend to go down to get cooler if your stuff gets a little too hot, or if they get stressed out, and then they'll go in here. And what happens if they go down too far in here is that this is where all the worm tea or worm pee pools up, and they'll go in there and they'll drown. And then when their bodies are decomposing, it'll attract mites. And another mistake that I made was that I put proteins in there. And I watched some videos on vermicomposting and stuff, and I have to say, in this kind of worm bin, unless you're able to watch the pH every day and monitor this thing every day, I'm not sure you should try to introduce any kind of proteins in there. And that means no eggs, no eggshells, milk, meats, of course, any kind of dairy or protein or meats or bones or any of that stuff, because you're going to attract all kinds of other elements in there, other kind of bugs, mites, and stuff that you really don't want to get in there. At one point I had maggots in there, and you just don't want to even deal with any of that stuff. So I recommend you stick to your vegetables and your fruits that you have in your kitchen. And seeing as how my wife and I, we eat quite a bit of salad and stuff, there should be plenty of stuff over the course of a week to be able to feed them. And another thing is that this is a mistake I made really early on. Don't put in stuff that isn't already starting to compost. So like your your city maybe gives you a compost bin that you can use to like, you know, throw stuff in there before you throw it in your compost to pick up out of the curb. You can use like a Ziploc bag in that bucket, you know, and just stick your stuff in there and have it be starting to decompose. By the time you serve it up to your worms, it should be good. And so these are some of the lessons that I learned. Also, I did really well. I did a lot better when I started to add some dry shredded paper, like, you know, from my shredder. You know, because they say, you know, you can feed them your junk mail and stuff. And so what I did was I started, you know, shredding paper and making bedding on top of here. And so I would have, you know, a good layer of bedding on top of here. And on the warmer days, or if it started to get too hot in here, which I'll talk about in a second, I would take the lid off and just have that bedding on there, and they would just be happily going crazy in there. The problems came when you know, part of it was that I had introduced all those proteins in there and the mites got out of control. And the weather got really hot and I didn't have a good place to put them. So I really got to rethink that. But another thing that I would recommend you get is like a meat thermometer, because you can stick this thing right down into the center of the soil and the center of the compost, and you can get, I mean, like, you can stick it right through the bins here and you can see what temperature it is inside there. So, and you want to keep it below, you know, between like 50 and 80 degrees, and definitely not above 90, because yeah, you start getting to 90 and you start finding dead worms, and then eventually the worms start eating each other, or, you know, the mites come and the mites eat the worms and stuff, and you really just don't want to deal with that. But you can see all these paper shreddings. It's just, you know, I just use my shredder, and they seem to love having that dry paper in there. And you know, if the paper got soggy or something, then I would take it out of there and I put it over in my urban tumbler composter. So you know, if I had my other meat scraps and proteins and stuff, that stuff I can put in there, because that thing will just fry it up, like cook it up like nobody's business. Had no problems putting proteins and different things in the urban tumbler. But in here, keep it to the fruits and vegetables. And you know, you might put some grass clippings in there if you need to add nitrogen, but don't make it a habit. You know, you just use it sparingly if you have to add some nitrogen into the mix or something. But you know, you can take some you know, weeds and stuff like that. But and also if you're doing weeds, I found out, you know, don't bring in anything that has seeds, because the digestive tract of the worm is not going to neutralize those seeds. If anything, it might fertilize them, and you'll end up with weeds in your compost. You don't want that. You don't want to be picking compost out of your soil. But anyway, that was, you know, I'm just kind of telling you my story of how I failed at worm composting this year. But next year, hopefully, it'll be a good success story. Anyway, we'll see you next week. Talk to you later. Bye. Hi, I'm Bryce from the BroBryceGardens channel, here to thank you especially for watching this video. Thanks again for all your help in getting this channel to take off like it has. It's been a great, awesome ride, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the winter holds in gardening, right? Gonna keep going. You know, I'm posting videos every Friday, and if you want to keep up to speed on when a new video comes out, make sure you click that subscribe button up there, and that'll keep you going. And please make sure, if you like these videos, click the like button down below, and that'll let YouTube know what you like, and you know, add them to your favorites, add them to your playlists, post them on blogs. And I appreciate all the people who have done that already. It's been really awesome, the results of that. I didn't even do that, and I didn't even know you guys were doing it. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon. See you next Friday, right? Have a great day. Bye.